Welcome back to Freedom Fridays. In this episode of Freedom Fridays, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the study that we've been doing because we are in a situation and a circumstance in our country that really needs to be dealt with biblically. And we are going to answer the question, how should a Christian vote? Now, that's a very controversial topic because we get a lot of our emotions and our ideas involved in that, and there's a lot of feelings politically, and there's a lot of feelings culturally and such, but we are most interested today in how should a Christian vote biblically. What does the Bible say about how a Christian should vote? Before you tune me out, I want you to hear me out, because this is very important. And it's not just very important because of an election. It's not very important because of who may or may not be on the ballot. It's not very important because of which side is leaning which way and which side has more power or less power than each other. But it's important because of our commitment to Christ, our commitment to God. And He has a will in this, and He wants His people to vote with a specific mindset and with a specific idea. And I think as we go through this, it's going to be a little different than what most of you think I'm going to say. So hear me out. And this is going to be a two-part session. This first section, we're going to discuss how should a Christian vote? How should a Christian vote? We're going to be starting in Joshua chapter 5. So if you have your Bible, turn to Joshua chapter 5. If not, I'm going to read it for you. In Joshua chapter 5, here's what's going on. Joshua and the nation of Israel. Joshua has just become put in charge of the nation of Israel. He immediately sends spies over the Jordan River. They're still on the east side of the Jordan. He sends spies over the Jordan River to spy out the land, and specifically Jericho, because that's going to be having to be the first place that they have battle. He sends the spies to Jericho. They meet Rahab and all of the things that happened in that. Then they come back. They give a report that God has already gone ahead of them. And then the nation comes across the Jordan River, another miraculous action on God's part to part the Jordan River, and the priests are in the center there. They put up the stones, and after they cross the Jordan River, they rededicate themselves to God. And they circumcise all of the men. They take the time to heal after that. And it's right on the heels of that. We're in Joshua chapter 5. They finally can have some food from the land while they're there. They celebrate the Passover. And at that moment, the manna ceases. And it's on the heels of that in verse 13. Now it came about when Joshua was by Jericho. Now Joshua was by Jericho. Why is Joshua by Jericho? Because they're getting ready to fight. They're getting ready to have a battle. They're getting ready to enter into the war that God had prepared them for to take the promised land. Joshua was somewhere near Jericho, and he was probably looking at the lay of the land. Remember, he was the general before he was taking Moses' place. And so he's looking at the lay of the land. He's looking at any obstacles that they have. He's looking at where would be the best place to set up the military campaign. Where's the best place to attack first? He's thinking all of these things, and how is God going to do this and such? And he's looking at Jericho, or he's near Jericho. And it says, he was by Jericho, then he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing opposite him. So there's this man right in front of him. He looks up, and he sees this man standing right in front of him. But it's not just any man. His sword was drawn. So with his sword drawn in his hand, so he sees this guy. This guy looks like another general. This guy looks like a military man. He's standing there. He's got his sword drawn. He's ready for battle. And Joshua said this to him. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries? Are you on our side or are you on Jericho's side? Are you on the side of the people of God, the nation of Israel, or are you on the side of Jericho, the pagans who have rejected God, who don't have any idea of God?" And so he's in our society today, he might be saying, "Are you with the Democrats or are you with the Republicans? Or are you with the, some of the other smaller groups?" And it's interesting that, of course, he's saying, "Are you for us or are you for them?" And Joshua could be thinking, we're the people of God. We're the Christians in our day and age. We're the ones who follow God. We're the ones who uphold biblical principles. Are you for us or are you for the liberals who don't like Christians, or the liberals? And I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, and I really don't care, because it seems to be increasing that the liberals are antagonistic toward Christians. And he's saying, "Are you for us or you're for them?" And we get a really shocking answer. He does not say, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. He does not say, "Well, Joshua, of course I'm for you. Of course I'm on God's side. Of course I'm on the side of the people of God." Instead, when Joshua asks this question, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" Verse 14, he said, "No." What do you mean? That's not a yes or no question. The question is, are you for the people of God or are you for the pagans with Jericho? Which one are you for? And the answer comes, no. I'm not for either one of you, Joshua. I'm not on your side. I'm not on Jericho's side. I'm not on the Republican side. I'm not on the Democrat side. I'm not on the Libertarian side. I'm not on a side here other than one, and you're not thinking about that side at all. See, many people, as they go to vote, they're thinking Democrat, they're thinking Republican, they're thinking Libertarian, they're thinking Green Party, they're thinking whatever other party you've got there. But they're not thinking biblically. They're thinking politically. And there are lots of differences between different candidates politically. And God is more focused on the biblical side. This man says, verse 14, "No, rather I indeed come now as captain of the Lord, or the host of the Lord." He says, Joshua, I'm not on your side. I'm not fighting in the next few days with you, next to you in battle. I'm not going to be there when you march around Jericho, which is in the next chapter that he's told to do that. I'm not going to be there when the walls come down and you rush into Jericho. I'm not going to be there fighting side by side with you. That's not my purpose. I'm not going to be on the side of the nation of Israel. I'm not going to be on the side of Jericho either. I'm on neither side. But he says, am the captain of the host of the Lord. I am on the Lord's side. I am on God's side. So, Christian, as you go to the polls, as you fill out your absentee ballot, as you prepare for voting and you're looking at different guides, make sure you do not say and you do not identify as, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Libertarian. And I'm not saying that you can't vote one way or the other, but those are not the things we vote for. We don't vote for Republicans. We don't vote for Democrats. We don't vote for parties. We need to be, well, which side are you on? No, I'm on the Lord's side. I'm on God's side. So if you are on God's side and you say, I want to vote Democrat, you can't be a full-fledged Democrat. And before all of the Republicans cheer, you can't be a full-fledged Republican either. We are not of this world. We are of the kingdom of heaven. We need to vote as members of a different nation. Now, I'm not saying we need to vote illegally. You have to be a citizen of the United States in order to vote in the United States. I get that. But we need to vote primarily and first and foremost as citizens of heaven. Christian, we need to vote biblically. We need to vote biblically. Don't vote for Republicans because your heritage is Republican. Don't vote for Democrats because your heritage is Democrat. Don't vote for Democrats because your heritage is Republican and you want to get away from it. Don't vote for Republicans because your heritage is Democrat and you want to get away from it. Vote biblically. We need to focus our mind. This is important. You may say, well, you're really not giving me anything, preacher. I am. I'm giving you a mindset, a worldview that we need to be focused on voting godlike. We need to be on his side. So when somebody says, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? We say, no, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm independent from Republicans and Democrats and even what they call independents. I am a Christian. And because I am a Christian, which remember what the word Christian meant and where it came about. It's a little image of Christ, a little Christ. It was originally a derogatory term, but then became to be a badge of honor. If you want to think that's a bad thing that I'm a little Jesus Christ, go ahead. But if when you look at me, if you see him, I'm going to think that's pretty special. And I'm going to be pretty happy about that. And so I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a libertarian. I'm a Christian. And I need to have that worldview going into voting. I need to have that worldview, honestly, going into everything. I need to have that worldview going into the movie theater. I need to have that worldview setting up my budget. I need to have that worldview picking out my life mate, my husband, my wife. Well, it wouldn't be a husband for me, but you all know I already have a wife. I need to have that worldview in every area of my life, especially in my voting. He says, I am not for you. I am for God. Joshua fell on his face to the earth, bowed down, and said to him, what has my Lord to say to his servant? He understood that this is actually what we call a theophany. This is a pre-existent, pre-Christmas existence of Jesus in the Old Testament. He is face to face with God the Son. And he says, what do you want me to do? He understands that God is not on his side or the other side. It's got to be the other way. We need to be on God's side, not him on our side. Let's take a look in another principle as we approach voting as Christians. In Romans chapter 13, it talks about how we are obedient to the government, but not just the obedience. That's not what I want to focus on today. We've talked about this passage in the past. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. And those which exist are established by God. Daniel said this in Daniel 5:21 when he said, when Nebuchadnezzar had become like an animal and such, and he said, so that people would recognize that the Most High God puts in charge whom he wants to. He is in charge. God is in charge ultimately. The president is not in charge. The vice president is not in charge. The Senate, the House of Representatives are not in charge. The governor is not in charge. The lieutenant governor is not in charge. Your mayor's not in charge. You are not in charge. God is the only one who is sovereign and in charge of the world. This is his world. And he can do and will do with it what he likes to accomplish his purposes. And the reason that we are obedient to authority is because we need to realize we need to be on God's side. Not the Republican side, not the Democrat side, but God's side. We need to be on God's side because there is no authority except from God. And those which exist are established by God. It's not that we don't vote. God has established government. God has ordained government and established government. But we need to do it with a perspective of not the political issues, but the biblical issues. And next week, we're going to take a look at the biblical issues. But this week, I want you to focus in every area of life. And I know I'm repeating myself because this is so important. In every area of life, we need to have the view that my side is irrelevant. God's side is where I need to focus. My side is irrelevant. The Republican side is irrelevant. The Democrat side is irrelevant. The whatever other side is irrelevant. What's relevant is, are you on the Lord's side? And that's why Joshua then immediately bowed the knee and said, I want to be on God's side. Tell me, Lord, what to do. That needs to be our focus going into voting. Not tell me CNN what to do, or whoever your favorite news channel is. Not tell me my internet sources what to do. Not even tell me good organizations like Right to Life or Focus on the Family tell me what to do. No. Our focus needs to be God, tell me what to do. Our authority is God. Our authority is not a political party. Our authority is not an organization. Our authority is the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Our authority is the scriptures. As we read through them, they give us the principles that we need to be focusing on. And we need to vote accordingly. We need to vote God's side. Whatever you're voting for, even down to the drain commissioner, if there's an option for you. You need to vote based on God. Who do you want me to vote for? Now that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of focus on the scriptures. And you're right, it does. And there are things to help us to find out who stands with what and for what in biblical issues, but a lot of times you've got to really dig. And so, yes, it's going to take some time. Yes, it's going to take some focus. Yes, it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be countercultural. You may have a mixed ticket. It's okay. You don't just have to check one box. But we need to focus on God's side. God, primarily going into this, I want you to be the one I'm focusing on. No matter who you vote for in November, God is still on the throne. They are not going to save us from the world or from the other party. Do not put your trust in men. I'm going to leave you with one last verse, and that is in Isaiah chapter 2. Came from our men's Bible study that I go to this week. And Isaiah chapter 2, verse 22 says, "Stop regarding man, whose breath of life is in his mouth, for why should he be esteemed?" The concept here is don't look to people to save you. Don't put people up on a pedestal. Focus on God. Thank you for joining us and for Freedom Fridays. And next week, we are going to answer the question, who does God want me to vote for? You may find it to be a very interesting and surprising discussion. See you next week on Freedom Fridays.